All right, this is County Commissioner for the 3rd District. We have Mark Ricks and Bob Heneage. Welcome to both of you. We'll begin with a question for both of you. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a 3-minute introductory statement for both of you. We'll begin with Mr. Ricks.
You know, I'm an off-the-cuff kind of guy, but as I was looking through things and thinking about things today, I came across a quote that made a lot of sense to me and maybe speaks to some of the reason that I decided to run for this office. The quote is from President Franklin D. Roosevelt, and it is, and I'll probably murder it, but the only sure bulwark of continuing liberty is a government strong enough to protect the interests of the people, and the people strong enough and well-informed enough to maintain its sovereign control over government. And I don't know if that's the case at this point in our history. A little bit about myself. I grew up in the area, started out on our family farm in Sugar City. My dad had a place down there, and my grandmother and an uncle ran the dry farm up here. So I spent the summers in my young years up here on on our family dry farm. My grandfather followed a herd of sheep up here. As a 7 to 12-year-old, he spent summers herding the sheep from Rexburg up into their forest rights on the east edge of the valley. My dad and then my grandfather homesteaded out on our original homesteaded farm, or family farm, out near Bitch Creek. My dad and his brothers came into some money. My other uncle left them a military life insurance policy of $20,000 when he passed as a young man, and they figured they needed to invest that money into our family farm and our family farming operation. They drilled some of the first deep wells and started irrigating and raising seed potatoes in 1966. And since from that point on, I spent most of my time up here. At that point in time, I run a school bus from Sugar City to all the farmers in this area that spent the winters in the Rexburg, Sugar City area. So we moved up in March and rode the bus from the River Hill down to schools in Sugar City, and then spent all our summers up this way. We've been able, my brother and his son are running a family ranch, and I've been able to expand to the north. I'm actually farming some of my great uncle's homesteads, and we've grown Dad's 320 into a 3,000-acre operation that produces seed potatoes. Am I out of time? Okay. Produces seed potatoes, and have recently brought my son back into the operation. He sold out of a successful business and decided to come back and farm. So we think we've got the next. We've been here 4. We think we got the next 2 in line to come. He and his boy. Thank you.
Hi, folks. I'm Bob Heneage. Can you hear me okay? I'm not used to working with a microphone. I'm running to be a Teton County Commissioner because I think I can be a force for effective change in the Valley. My wife and I moved here 26 years ago. We've seen several boom and bust cycles in this valley. About 10 to 12 years ago, we saw the incredible land rush that all the rest of us saw, which resulted in a wasteland of cul-de-sacs that are full of weeds, 100 subdivisions, 7,000 lots. I don't ever want to go back to that place again, personally. I think the draft code that we have in process right now is the direction we need to be going. It's not perfect. It needs to be tuned, no question about it. The P&Z commissioners have been working really hard on it for the last 20 months, I think to good effect. They've tabled it for the meantime to get it out of politics, which is probably a great decision. They're going to take it back up in January, I understand. Hopefully it's going to get turned over to the county commissioners soon thereafter. And then we can get into it. And with public input, we will get this thing where we need to get it. The previous land use code got us what we got before. And I've heard if you want to keep getting what you're getting, keep doing what you're doing. We don't need to be doing that anymore. Little background on myself. I'm an architect of publicly funded projects for the most part. I have worked all over the state of Idaho and the state of Wyoming, and in fact the entire mountain time zone over the last 20 years, doing pretty large projects that are under the public eye. I've developed a fairly thick skin. Usually if we do a good job, we don't hear much. If we're perceived as not having done a great job, we hear about it loudly and in public and usually in the newspaper. The biggest project I ever did was the Energy Innovation Laboratory down in Idaho Falls a couple of years ago. It was a $45 million budget. I had to coordinate a team of 25 people working towards a very complex finished product. It came out well. We won some national awards on that project. I think I'm capable of putting together complicated finished products. I have also, in the course of my career, worked with probably 24 different planning and zoning commissions in 2 states. There's a lot of different approaches to solve that riddle. I've been exposed to most of them. They all have good pieces and not so good pieces, and it's been a big learning experience, and I think I can use what I've learned working with all those different planning and zoning ordinances in different states here. Looks like I'm out of time, so thanks a lot.
So our first question, Bob, if you'd like to stay up there, our first question will be for you. In your opening statements, you kind of mentioned about how you need to strike a balance when it comes to development. And on your campaign website, you promised to hold developers and not taxpayers accountable for development costs.
Right.
How would you do that without stifling growth and development in the valley?
It's a good question. Nobody wants to stifle growth. We're all in favor of growth, but we do need to get the development back under some modicum of control here. Everybody wants growth, but we would like to see good growth, not wild growth. Rephrase the question, please.
So how would you hold your campaign promise on your website of holding developers accountable for the costs of development without stifling?
The pattern in the past here has been for developers to get a little bit of a free ride, and we're socializing the risk on a lot of these projects and privatizing the profit. We've got to get away from that and make these guys pay their way as they go along.
All right. The next question is for Mark Ricks. In your introductory statements, you had mentioned another part of the economy, which is agriculture, and how this is something that's very important to the heritage of the valley and a lot of families here. How do you see the role of agriculture changing, if at all, as the valley becomes more developed, and how would you address that in your time on the commission?
Well, contrary to what some of you might have heard, I am not pro-development. I compete for the lands that are developed. They're a big part of my farming operation, and the cost of land influences what I do. But I do believe strongly in a landowner's right to use his property to the highest and best use available to him, and that can change. And whether that's dictated, I think we need to be very, very careful about throwing roadblocks up through our development codes that stifle ingenuity, which has been the builder of this nation and this county. I read in the Teton County Almanac that I didn't realize that I was an entrepreneur, but they characterize agriculture as an entrepreneur, and when you take it to the biggest sense of the word, I guess we really are. We produce food for this country, and I'm proud to be part of the American agriculture business, and I'm proud to be part of this 44 county state. It's proud, and we protected agriculture and are one of the big producers here of a lot of ag products. And in this county specifically, we play a major role in the potato industry in the whole United States, and that needs to be protected. I think it's regulated plenty right now because we deal with USDA, we deal with OSHA, we deal with all the other government agencies that regulate, and further regulation from this county isn't helpful. Thank you.
This next question is for both of you. You have both been watching county government recently as you've run for office. What recent county decision would you have made differently, and how? Mr. Ricks, we'll start with you.
Well, there's a couple, and one would be the solid waste fiasco that we went through in the last year and a half. Bill said that some of the commercial industry or commercial buildings were overpaying, but under the ruling that he proposed, my farm, or I know more about mine. I know there's bigger landowners and more parcel owners, but a bare parcel of ground on my place. I had one parcel. By the way it was accumulated and the way the highways run through it, that the tax bill was $6 and it went to $66. I thought that wasn't right. We had hearings. That didn't change. We sued the county. The summary judgment said we were correct in the assumption that the county couldn't charge it the way they did. I am totally agree that we need a solid waste facility. I think the more that you can fund that by a user fee is the fairest way to do it. But the county decided to take that to the Supreme Court. I guess that'll be happened, and in their recently passed resolution, they attached another fee structure under the same statutes, I guess, or same logic that they had the solid waste fee. Number two, I'm done. Sorry, 10 seconds. I don't agree with the way. I think it's a good project at the Bates Bridge, but the way it's been funded, I think it's there wasn't public input, and using tax dollars that way when we're $48 million behind on our deferred maintenance in our road system makes no sense to me.
And actually, before we hand that question over to Mr. Heneage, we'd like to do a quick follow-up, if you will, Mr. Ricks. You'd mentioned a lawsuit regarding that solid waste fee that you were a plaintiff in. How would being a plaintiff in that lawsuit affect your time on the commission, or how do you see it affecting
I hope
it
it goes away. I hope the lawsuit is settled through sitting down at the table and figuring out a way that the plaintiffs can gain some satisfaction. There's other funding mechanisms or other ways to collect the fees to run the solid waste. They're laid out in statute. It was a choice that was made by this commission. You've heard their logic behind it. The summary judgment court didn't agree with them. So I would hope we can sit down, whether I'm elected or not, and settle the darn thing. It's gone on too long. There's other funding mechanisms, other ways to collect the fees that are legal. So I would probably think that there's a way that we can sit down and work it out through a settlement or some way like that.
Thank you. Again, the question, Mr. Heneage, was you've been watching county government since you decided to run for office. A recent county decision that you would change and how you would change it.
Okay. First, I want to respond to something that Mark said. As far as the Bates Bridge goes, I would have no change. I think that was one of the most brilliant projects that the commissioners have come up with in the last year or two. Regarding the solid waste fee, I do agree that initially that could have been handled better. The commissioners initially made a uniform price per parcel across the entire county. Therefore, a parcel that had a house on it was paying the same amount that an empty parcel paid. That might not have been the right balance. I think the commissioners, as time went on, came to a much better position. Now, I understand an empty parcel pays $14 and an occupied parcel pays $90, something like that. And that seems really fair to me. I do not believe that any parcel should pay nothing. And that goes back to answering your earlier question, which I really didn't answer fully, of how do we hold developers accountable. One of the ways, you shouldn't be able to just chop up a piece of ground into 10 different parcels, getting it ready for market, and have there be no tax consequences at all. There should be some consequence to that, to not encourage people to just start divvying up land, getting it ready to go to market. Every parcel should pay something, I do believe that. Not necessarily the same amount that one that's improved pays, but they should pay something. If you divide, there should be a cost.
All right. And once again, please limit applause till the very end. Thank you very much.
This next question is for both of you, and we actually want to give you an opportunity to ask your opponent a question. Mr. Heneage, we'll start with you.
Oh, wow. Mark, what do you do for fun?
The first 65 years, or 62 years of my life, I worked. And much to my wife's dismay, I got into team roping 2 years ago. That's kind of consumed what I do. I enjoy that. I get to do it with my family and grandsons. I have 4 grown children that live in the county. That's what I do for fun.
It's your turn to ask me.
Oh, I'd ask you the same question because till tonight we'd never met.
Yeah. I think I like you. I like to play in the outdoors. I like to go skiing, climbing, backpacking. This summer I did a 170-mile backpack in the Sierras with an old childhood friend of mine. It was pretty grueling. I think I lost 12 pounds on that hike. I've put them all back on. Backcountry skiing, playing in the Tetons. I've summited most of these mountains several times. I like going into central Idaho a lot. It's a different kind of country. I just like playing in the wilderness. That's my #1 passion.
I do fish and hunt a little on the side.
All right, so we have another question for both of you. It's actually a question we asked the other candidates as well. According to Department of Labor statistics and through the state, Teton County has a per capita income of $29,000, about $7,000 below the state average. What role, if any role, does the county play in changing that figure? Why don't we go with Mr. Ricks first?
Well, I guess my farm laborers, my 4 employees that work for me are above the average. I believe in trying to teach my kids personal responsibility, and I think as an employer, I have a responsibility to pay folks a livable wage. We furnish housing for the people that we have. Get back to the solid waste fee and how it gets into the cost of doing business. In my particular case, the fee that they imposed originally costs our farm, our family farm, because we furnish 4 houses. We were paying a fee on those, have 22 parcels, $200 to $2,500 a year, and that takes away from the land managers in this country, or in this county, to the tune of nearly, the original fee was to the tune of nearly $550,000. Out of the ag people are managing most of the open space that's being managed. So I think it's a responsibility of the employers. And so how you have a business model that allows you to do that, it's something that we work towards and that we feel strongly about on our family farm. And you can talk to my employees. We pay them all above the minimum and furnish housing for them. Thank you.
All right, same question to Bob Heneage.
I believe we really need to diversify the economic base of the valley. Since we've been so keyed into development, I've lived here 26 years. Everything's been about house building and development. I mean, look, I'm an architect. I understand that as well as anybody. But if we can diversify the economic base of the valley and have not everybody in the valley be wearing a nail belt every day, that would be a good thing. And it's a very doable thing. We've got a business down in Victor called City Pass who have set themselves up here. They are selling packages to visit various cities around the United States. I think they're currently working in about 20 different cities. And they sell discount passes to places like SeaWorld and things like that. They've got a staff of like 50 people down there, and they're making a pretty big payroll that's getting recirculated into the local economy. I mean, these people are shopping at Brolam's, and that money gets recirculated back into the local economy. They're pulling in dollars from outside, and then it stays here for a time before it starts to trickle back out. It really makes a huge difference in a more permanent way than the boom and bust type jobs that have to do with development economy. Those jobs come and go. If we can develop e-commerce and things like that, my business as an architect, we are working a big circle out of Driggs. We've worked out of here for the last 15 years. I have projects as far west as Sun Valley and as far east as Casper, Wyoming. All of those projects, we're pulling the money back into this valley. We make payroll here. Those people are recirculating their paychecks back into the local economy, and that makes a big difference. If we can do that, I think it'll make a huge difference, and we can get more businesses to move and locate here if we, A, assist the school district in developing better schools and new schools, and B, work on finishing this development code and getting it where it needs to be.
Mr. Heneage, a follow-up question. You just mentioned the schools and education, and on your campaign website it says that you support education in the Valley. As a commissioner, what exactly does that mean?
I think anything that can be done to lower the tax burden on a typical taxpayer, like for example, what the current commissioners have done with the ambulance district is they removed a chunky fee from everybody's tax bill with this ambulance switch over to the fire department. It's $500,000 that's no longer being spent at the county level. That lessened tax burden is going to motivate people a little bit more to vote yes on the next school bond, is a good example. What else can we do? Just provide an environment that's conducive to the schools doing what they need to do. If we can help them locate good parcels of ground for the new school buildings, for example.
A related question to Mark Ricks. I know your family and you've been in this area for a long time. Do you see the school district on an upward trend, and is there something that the county commissioners can do to help continue or start that journey?
I think our schools do a good job of educating our kids. They leave here, there's successes. There's success story after success story that is educated in our school systems. My feeling is that we don't have near the parental support to our teachers that we had 15 to 20 years ago. I mean, I say this about my grandkids, and maybe this will ring true. These kids that drop on the dirt right now, they have 6 people trying to provide for them everything that they didn't have as they were coming up. And we have to exercise, as parents and as grandparents and as a community family, we need to have that value system instilled in them. I think my life lesson has been that school is an avenue that teaches you to learn, and if you're not continually learning, you're not going to be successful long term. And I think that comes right back to the community values, the values of parents, and the responsibility that we take as parents. And we need to take that and take it very seriously. Thank you.
All right, this next question is for the both of you. What do you believe is the most serious issue facing Teton County? Mr. Ricks, we'll start with you.
Well, I think our challenge is to grow the economy. I think our task is to not put up roadblocks. I think we need to, and one of the ways we do that is with a sensible code that doesn't restrict. And everything can't be absolute. As I go through that code, and I've studied it, and I've spent more time than I want to, in all the rural areas, I see not allowed more than it should be, in my opinion, for uses. As I go through those charts, there's hundreds of not alloweds and a lot of conditionals. We need to get that right through this process, and I agree that we put the right pressures on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I appreciate their work. They've worked hard, and I hope they're open-minded enough to consider the issues that were brought before them and to approach them in a manner that buys more community buy-in to it. Our ag sector is probably the most stable that we have, but it has challenges. We're farming at 6,200 feet. The ag book that I had in high school said cultivated agriculture above 5,000 foot elevation is economically impractical, and I've spent my life proving that author wrong. So, but our ag community still is our stable. There's other things that we can grow, and so I think those are important. Thank you.
It's funny, I understood all the best coffee was from like 7,000 feet. 13, 14 years ago, I got asked to sit on the Economic Development Subcommittee for the Comprehensive Plan, and there's a lot of talk these days about the comp plan this and the comp plan that. This is the previous comp plan. This is the 2002 comp plan that I'm talking about. And we worked just as hard on that one as they worked on the 2013 comp plan. The difference was, in those days, the county commissioners just kind of took that comp plan and threw it under the desk and kept doing what they were doing. And we ended up with the junk show that we got in the middle part of the last decade. As I said in my introduction, I don't really want to go back there again. That was absolutely infuriating to me to watch that happen after all the effort that we'd put into that previous comp plan. Okay, so fast forward. We have a new comp plan. It's an award-winning document, I've been told. Everybody thinks it's great, and by state law, we're supposed to get the development code to conform to the comp plan. Let's do it. And let's see this one through this time. We owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to our kids.
All right, that is actually, we're within less than a minute of our time allotted for this section. We'd like to thank both candidates very much for their answers.